All right. It is 1 p.m. In Moscow. It's noon in Germany. And in most of Europe. I think we should start slowly by just checking our settings again. So, dear friends, welcome to our Antarctic webinar, and thank you for joining. We always appreciate your time. I know it's in some countries it is weird time of the day or weird time of the evening, but it's really great that you can manage to join us for our polar talks. It's really great. Before we go ahead, let's do our little exercise and see if you can hear us well. Please just type plus in the chatter box, and we will make sure that everyone is well connected. Very good. It's good that we can trust the modern technologies these days and not to worry about it. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know that you can hear us well. And for those who are joining us today for the first time, my name is Kate, and I work at Sales and Marketing Department of Poseidon Expeditions. Today I will be your host, and we will be talking about Antarctica. We will actually cover a couple of different topics connected to this absolutely beautiful area, and we will talk about the continent itself first. Then we will discuss the wildlife, and we will talk about different seasons that we have in Antarctica. And of course, we will talk in a little more details about the itineraries that we offer aboard Sea Spirit to go and explore Antarctica. Before we go, you have also seen Anja joining me. So Anja is my co-host today, and she's joining us from Germany. And as you already heard, I am talking to you from Moscow in Russia. And another exercise that we really like is getting to know where our guests are from. So we already know that there's Australia, we have Helsinki, here Scotland, and if you guys could also type in the countries where you are at right now, it would be really great. Singapore, there you go. Australia, like we said, England, Israel. I think that's the first time we're having Israel. Sweden, Spain, Taiwan, Finland. I always say this, this geography, you know, and this opportunity, and we actually got Malaysia and Croatia today as well with us. It's really nice that we can connect so easily together and talk about the things that we are passionate about. And just again to mention that that's exactly the atmosphere aboard the ships when you go to Arctic or Antarctica. Of course, it can be the same when you travel everywhere in the world, but I feel like this atmosphere is mostly applicable to the cruises when you go to such remote places. And we have someone just joining from Italy, so thank you, really thank you for finding time and joining us and sharing our passion to polar regions. Before we take you to Antarctica, a couple of words about Poseidon expeditions. So I have been working in Poseidon expeditions for a little more than 9 years. And for 21 years already, Poseidon expeditions is taking passengers to the Arctic and Antarctica. We are quite small company, privately owned, but still we have big geography. Our offices are in 7 different countries. And right now, just briefly, I would like to introduce to you our fleet. Anja, if you could get us the next picture. Perfect, thank you. On this picture, you see the most powerful nuclear-powered icebreaker that takes lucky passengers to the top of the world, to the North Pole, to the 90 degrees. And if someone is interested in a trip like that, we've done the webinar just about the traveling to the North Pole, and I really highly recommend to have a look. We have the links, so let us know if you want to have a look. And after we have been doing for quite a long time the expedition cruises only in the Northern Hemisphere, with the experience that we have acquired, we've started in 2013 to offer expedition cruises to Antarctica. And the ship that takes passengers both to the Arctic and Antarctica is Sea Spirit. Sea Spirit, we use her for all year round, going to the Arctic during the summertime and going to Antarctica during European winter time. You know, everyone who works in the office and aboard the ships are passionate about the polar regions. We're like a little bit of fans of this area, and all of us, we share this passion, and we have been to aboard our ships, go into these beautiful destinations. And I'm just trying to say that everyone who is arranging these trips for you and who is working with you aboard the ship, they're really doing their best to provide the best experience, and of course sharing their knowledge and passion with the guests aboard. And right now, I would like to introduce properly now Anja, because she's a very unique member of our team. Not only she works in the home office in Poseidon expeditions, she also works aboard the ships as the expedition leader. Anja has huge experience of working in polar regions and Antarctica as well. And actually during the previous seminar, she has shared with us the story of her career. And right now, I would like Anja to ask you to share with us maybe one of your stories from Antarctica, or maybe one of the most memorable experiences in that area. Please.
Well, first of all, hello to everybody. Very good to see you. Hope that you're all well, and thanks for joining. So once again, my name is Anja. I'm working for Poseidon Expeditions, and as Kate said, I have a little experience in leading polar expeditions. It's now around 20 years in the north and in the south. And so, of course, there come some stories together that would maybe fill a seminar already. But I would like to say as well that before I joined Poseidon 5 years ago, I have worked also on other size vessels, on big ships, up to 450 passengers also. But I wanted to go back to the roots and to the small ship experience where I, as expedition leader, can give the real, at least for me, expedition feeling to the guests. So I came to Sea Spirit, and I'm very happy about it. Antarctica is something that cannot be compared. I have to warn you already, no matter how often you go there, it's always different. And once again, I'm going for many years down there now. And I like it that it's so changeable, has great wildlife experiences. And to choose only a few special things, maybe for me, and if you have been to Antarctica, maybe you understand what I mean. One thing is the light. I enjoy the light very much, especially when it's 1 or 2 o'clock. Basically, in the morning, you have a very, very special light in Antarctica, and the yellow light, so you will not get a lot of sleep. I think for me also for Antarctica, I was extremely lucky in spending many years ago some time at a former British station, which is called Port Lockroy. And I truly enjoyed it because for me as expedition leader, when I go down, I can mentally never relax, while a guest can enjoy the scenery. Very often I have to have my eyes everywhere, so I concentrate on many things, but I could have never had time for me and to sit down for 2, 3, 4 hours. And I was very lucky that I was accepted as the first expedition leader to go to the former station Port Lockroy. That is very nice. And I have to put in this picture too, because another great experience is when you're Zodiac driving, and for example, when you are driving, and again, no matter how often you have done it, and suddenly you have an orca behind you, for example. I know that they don't do anything, but my imagination is fantastic. All the movies come up. So I like this very much. Or last year, I had a humpback diving under my Zodiac, and that is definitely something that stays in your mind and something that you don't forget. And it doesn't matter how often you go there, because every experience is so unique.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Anja, for sharing. To be honest, even I've been to Antarctica, I still get the goosebumps when someone talks about it so passionately and shares stories like that, because these are the things that you remember for the rest of your life, of course.
That's for sure.
Absolutely. And, there are so many people talking about Antarctica. There are people dreaming about going to the places like that, planning trips to Antarctica. And I feel like it's on everyone's bucket list nowadays. I think it will be good if we talk a little bit more about the continent itself, what it is, where it's located, what it looks like. Anja, how about you share some information with us?
Mm. That is, of course, a great start. And here you have the map about Antarctica. And yes, it is more and more in the knowledge of people and in the interest, because in the past years, there come more and more documentaries. We hear a lot of history about it, and it's coming more and more. And so that's fantastic also to bring in the mind of the people, also with, of course, a global awareness where you go. So here you have the map about Antarctica. And I like this one quite a lot because you can see clearly that Antarctica is separated into two parts. You have the East Antarctica part and you have the West Antarctica part. And when you read a book, you will always read that it is the coldest, the windiest, and the driest place on Earth. But I have to add, it's also one of the most fascinating places on Earth. When you are going here, you have to imagine that most of it is, of course, covered with ice and snow. Around 99% is covered with ice. And there are only very, very few places where you have access to the land itself. The ice cover is quite thick. It's around 4,200 meters at the thickest. And that's around, I think, 4,700 feet, something like that, for those that are calculating in this. And what we do with Poseidon, that we concentrate now here on the left-hand side, where you see on the map Parma land, everything above, that is the Antarctic Peninsula. And that is where most ships are going to. And also we are going to that area. And then we go to the western side of the Antarctic Peninsula, because here we have the most accessible places for us. When you go to the Weddell Sea, then a lot of ice coverage is there. And of course, it is the smallest distance that we have, because you see already Argentina popping up there, and it is the smallest distance, only around 600 nautical miles. That means 1.5, 2 days, you are in the Drake, and we are talking about this a little bit later. So you also have on this map here the Falkland Islands, Malvinas. I will always use two names. I want to be politically correct, sorry. So Falkland Island, Malvinas, we have South Orkney, South Georgia. So this is the area here, more the left side top part that we are going to talk about today. And then we have a few pictures, of course. And I'm happy that in this slide presentation, I really like it, that it's not only sunshine pictures, because Antarctica is extremely challenging. Weather changes very quickly, and everything has its fascination. I mean, you are in the nature, and the weather, that is one of the great places. The winds can change very suddenly. So it can look like this, still very nice. It can get even nicer, look like this. You see also in the background, it's one of the bays. It looks like Antwerp Bay in the southern part of the peninsula. You have the mountains, but you can already see that there's snow and glaciers coming down all the time. And this, I think, is quite a good picture in the way that you see there is not much space for landing. And that's why there are many different activities that you can do, not only landing in Antarctica, but also, for example, zodiac cruising that we talk about. Because of this changeable weather, I think it's very important that for Antarctica, when you want to think about it, you think flexibility. If you have customers that want to go, flexibility is a keyword. The more flexible they are, the better it is. I'm German, so I can say they're not the most flexible ones. You get there eventually. Yeah, changes occur, and that is, we are also talking about expedition. So you have the weather. We are talking about the seasons a little bit later on. And of course, you have the wildlife. I mean, how many people really want to see penguins? I think that's nearly everybody. And no matter how many times you have seen penguins, they're always great. They're always fantastic. You can take a picture again and again, because for you, every penguin will look different. Maybe already a little word of advice. When you show your pictures at home to your friends, only 5 pictures of penguins. Because for you, every penguin looks different, but for your friends that have not been there, it's really tricky. But also important it is that you, in Antarctica, be prepared to take your time, to sit down, to relax, to really watch the wildlife. Because alone in this picture, with the snow coverage, the mountains in the background, and of course the wildlife, there is very much that you can see. We can get relatively close to wildlife, around 5 meters, we say. There are some rules and regulations from IATO, which we are a member of. It's the International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators. And of course, when you go to the peninsula, you see the smaller kind of penguins. For example, the gentoos, as you are going to see here. We also have, of course, a lot of seals, and they are also fantastic to see. We are in the team with a biologist as well, so we are going to give you lectures. It's great to see how the wildlife is coming back. We have to think about history as well of Antarctica. Whaling, sealing has been extremely strong. Sealing started in the 1820s, but now you really see that wildlife is returning. They are taking their place back. And since the protection through the Antarctic Treaty, I mean, it cannot be any better. So if you want to see scenery and wildlife, Antarctica is really your spot.
Thank you very much, Anja, for such a great overview and really inspiring. So I would like to say, and of course, when we go to Antarctica, we pick up the best time, right? So we are going there during the Antarctic summer because we want our guests to really enjoy the awakening of the nature, also active wildlife in Antarctica. And summer in Antarctica starts, I would say, in the beginning of November or at the end of October, and it ends by the end of the March. And usually when we talk about different cruises in Antarctica, we get a lot of questions about when is the best time to go. And we usually say that summer is the best time to go, but right now we would like to go in a little more details about each period of Antarctic summer. And I would like to ask Anja to cover this, please.
No problem. Here we go. First of all, what I find from experience is that as a guest, you have to have a very clear picture what Antarctica should look like for you. What do you want to see? Because every month is different. And that's why we want to cover now this, the season basically, and tell you what is interesting in it. For example, if you come in the early summer, let's say October, November, for me, it's a time I really enjoy traveling, because for me, that is a time where everything is still very pristine. That means if I have a guest who says, oh, I want to see a lot of snow, I want to see a lot of ice, it is always there. But of course, in the beginning of the season, the real snow coverage, that is, for example, there. So the white and pristineness, that is in the early season. It is also the time when the penguins arrived. I was there now last season in beginning of November. And sometimes when you're zodiac cruising, you don't see many penguins, and suddenly you have thousands and thousands arriving. So this is a time. The penguins arrive, they do the courtship, as you can see here. There are lots of activities in the rookeries. We have the penguins, they are looking for nest building material. By the way, here we have a shin strap, and in the back, gentoo penguins, some of the smaller ones. And this is a time where I just recommend sometimes to sit and watch the penguins, because while one penguin is sitting on the nest and maybe stealing a stone from the nest before, and he thinks he's a very smart one, the penguin behind him has maybe already stolen from him a little rock. So you see many things, and the beginning of the season for me, is really where you see the activities directly and the courtship, and that is the beginning of the season for me. A little bit from the weather, you have everything. Talking about it, some people say, oh, middle season, it's more stable. You have to think about every weather at every month. And that is something also that maybe you have to keep in mind. This is also a picture how South Georgia maybe looks like at the beginning of the season, still of course with the snow covering. And some people, they go to South Georgia on those trips and they want to see the jousting, the fighting elephant seals. And that, for example, is only in the beginning of the season. Yeah. So these ones in the beginning, October, November, we have the bulls coming to South Georgia, to the beaches. They are establishing their harems, a lot of fights going on, and that is October, November time. So that is quite special, I think, for this. Then let's talk about the mid-season, and midsummer is, let's say, December, January. This is the time where maybe the snow melts a little bit. So maybe for people that have a little bit more walking difficulties, it's maybe a bit easier because they don't have to walk all the time on the snow. The days are now getting longer. We have a lot of activities going on. The weather, once again, still changeable. But now what is the main difference? The main difference is that the penguins have now maybe chicks. We talk about end of December, January, approximately. So when you want to see like a little chick, like here from the shin strap, peeking out under the parent, that is the time to come. And for me, as working on the ships, it's very important because when I have a guest coming in October that wants to see this one, I already know that I cannot fulfill because it's just not possible. That's why it is so important to really look what you want to see, ask us, ask your travel agent, and they will give you the right time. It is a time where it's important to keep the distance to the wildlife because of course we have the penguins and they are very nice and cute with their chicks, but there are also predators. For example, a skua is maybe just circling above, waiting that the adult penguin is moving, and that's why then they get the chicks. So it's very important to keep in line with the regulations, with keeping the distance to the wildlife, being respectful, because we are a visitor there in the end. But no worry, we will give you all the explanation about it. And usually the smaller penguins, they have 2 chicks, as you can see here as well. Very, very good time, very cute. And then when we go a bit later through the season, then let's say February, March, and the days are getting now considerably shorter. That's for sure. It's getting maybe a little bit more cold towards March, maybe a bit more snowfall is coming. The wildlife is still there. And what is nice at this time is the light again, because you do have the sun sets and the sun rises, which you don't have middle of the season. So many people enjoy this very much, and this kind of bluish color as you see it here. And Kate, if I talk too quick, you let me know. I just get excited. So you have to let me know when I got too quick. But this is a very, very nice time. And you have these cool teenagers running around. These are now the chicks. For example, here we have a Adili chick, and they really look funny. Like, look, they have molded most of it, but just a little bit on the top is still there. They are very curious. They want to know what's going on. And now, if you sit down and if you are quiet and relax, you have a chance that these chicks are coming also closer to you. We cannot approach too close. We cannot disturb, but the chick can, of course, decide a little bit if it wants to come closer. No touching, etc. But it's a time where really these ones are super cute, running around everywhere in the rookeries. And also for South Georgia, it's a time that I like a lot. Beginning, end of season, it's always great, but you have not only the king penguins all the time there, but if you come towards the end of the season to South Georgia, the wildlife is a little bit different in the way that now we have a lot of fur seal pups. Beginning of the season, the bulls also, then it's breeding time, but in the end you have thousands of fur seal pups around you in South Georgia, and that's very special, I think, for the end of the season. This slide is just a little overview, once again, with the pinnipeds, the seabirds, and the cetaceans, which are whales, basically. And when I started 20 years ago in that area, and people would have asked me when to see, for example, whales, I would have always pushed them to December, February, January, that kind of time. But over the years now, I must have seen a lot of changes. And we have also whales in the beginning of the season. So you cannot do this distinguishing anymore. This question comes regularly, but I cannot say anymore, now it's the best time for whales, because we do have plenty. And for whales, for example, it's humpbacks, orcas that you see, the minke whales, fin whales. So there is quite of variety actually that we have there. Oh, by the way, before I forget, if you're interested in books, I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah,
this is called, it's my Bible. It's called Antarctica, the Guide for Wildlife. It's by a gentleman called Tony Soper. And if you want to bring a small book, it's very thin, it's very light, and every wildlife has around, let's say, 2 pages. But it's small pages, and it gives the main information. It's a very good one. So if you're interested, reading up a little bit, I'm not doing advertisement, but buy it. Okay, this one. Here we go.
Thank you for your recommendation, Anja, and sharing the seasons and the differences in the season in Antarctica, because it is, I agree, it is one of the important questions for the travel partners and for the guests who are planning their trip. What exactly do you want to see? What kind of Antarctica you would like to see? And of course, as you have seen on the map, Antarctica is so remote, and the best way and pretty much the only way to get there and to travel there is going by the ship. And right now we would like to tell you just a little bit about Sea Spirit. That's exactly the ship that we take to Antarctica. So Sea Spirit is a small deluxe expedition vessel, and the maximum capacity of it is 114 passengers. It's a small, comfortable ship for all the activities in Antarctica. You can see here that we have 11 Zodiac boats aboard the ship, and it's really important for all the operation that we do when we are in Antarctica, because Zodiacs is exactly what we use to get on land and also to do the Zodiac cruising for you to see the wildlife and nature up close. Apart from Zodiacs, we are using kayaks, and this is a very special program for us. And Sea Spirit is very well equipped for kayaking and camping as well in Antarctica. We will be talking in more details about these activities a little later. I would like to tell that you can see the ship here.
Laura just said, I hope you're enjoying it.
Oh, just had to mute someone, sorry about that. And the ship is very convenient for you to travel on, because of course we sleep every day on the ship. We take all of our meals on the ship, and Sea Spirit is like a home away from home, where we have the restaurant, where we have the bar, where we have beautiful and spacious cabins. Because, you know, when you're in Antarctica, you have activities throughout the day, 2 or 3 different things that you do, and of course lectures and workshops. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you want to come and you want to have a moment and you want to relax, and we really have everything for your comfort aboard. Just talking a little bit more about the cabins, they are the most spacious cabins that you can encounter in the expedition vessels, because the smallest one is 20 square meters. All of the cabins are outside. Some of them have portholes, some of them have windows, and we are proud to say that we have 2 decks where we have the cabins with balconies. And actually, for us, we say that every cabin is a suite because it's beautiful. It has everything you need, and if you have a private balcony, you can get outside on the balcony and enjoy the wildlife and nature at any time. And right now, of course, we would like to make a very short tour aboard Sea Spirit, and we have really talked in detail about our ship during our previous webinar. So Anja, if you could make a quick tour just to show a little bit of Sea Spirit to our friends, that would be really great. Thank you.
No, of course. Thank you very much, Kate. So you have seen already the restaurant. Let me just go back. What I would like to say is that it's free seating in the restaurant, which I find important because if you have a group, of course, maybe they sit together, but otherwise you can sit where you like. Be honest, sometimes you sit with people the first night and you don't really want to spend the second night with them at the same table. So you can change this. We have also a bar, which is very cozy. We are a small ship, but nevertheless, you have space to move around and also find an area for yourself. The bar is on deck 4. We have an open bridge policy, which we are super happy about, because it means that you can go to the bridge whenever it is possible. When it's, of course, a bit more interesting weather, you go into a port or something, then it's not possible. But other than that, you can visit the officers as well. And already talked about a book, which is also in our very well-equipped library. And we have books in nearly every language. The English part, because we do an English presentation, is quite big. So actually you do not load too many books in your luggage. First of all, you have no time to read them. You want to be outside. And if you want to look at something, we have the library actually here for you. We do have a very nice lecture hall. I mean, we are 13 in the team anyways that want to give lectures. So we will lecture a lot if you want. I'll give recaps, but here we meet, for example, and talk about biology, if there are any questions, history. And that's why I also changed back to a small ship, because as expedition leader, I see very quickly where the interests lie within a group and I can adapt. If I have 400 passengers, I don't adapt, but with 100 passengers, it's easy. Huh? You talk to each other, and I like this very much. And so the lectures are really, really well visited. Do not forget your bathing suit for many reasons. First, we have a polar plunge, if you're crazy enough to do that, to jump in the cold water. But you have also the jacuzzi on deck 4. Very, very recommendable to sit there, see the icebergs passing by. This is also a deck where we maybe offer a lighter lunch. What you see here is a full barbecue setup, which we try, for example, once a trip, but you can eat a light lunch basically every day. So I think that's very nice. And here you see our marina. Usually we use a marina deck for disembarkation. You see the marina deck where the people are at the moment boarding in a Zodiac. The deck above is already the Zodiac deck, which means that all of our Zodiacs are there, and we can disembark everybody within 30 minutes on an average time, because we have such a quick operation going on. And I think that's what we are also very proud of. Would like to mention here also, when we do cruises, that your driver is an expedition team member. That means even when we do a Zodiac cruise, which is fantastic, you can get all the information that you want at this time as well. So we can explain directly, and I think that is a very, very good feature as well. So maybe just very shortly about the ship, because we talked about it in other webinars quite in detail.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Anja, for the tour. And I think even if you didn't join our previous webinar, you could already get the idea of what it looks like. To be honest, every time you step aboard the ship, even for me, when I go back, I try to go at least every couple years to one of our cruises. And it really feels good, because you see an amazing team of great people who are always smiling, welcoming, and you know, you feel very good. Plus, mentioning about the small ship, to be honest, if we can recommend something 100% here when you're choosing your trip to Antarctica, please pick a small ship, because then it gets you the most experience, maximum experience. And that's exactly why you're going there, to get the most of it. Moving forward, talking about, I think it's high time we actually talk about the itineraries that we have, because of course you have Antarctica, you have South Georgia and Falkland Islands, but right now we would like to get a little more detailed about each trip. Anja, please.
Okay, here we go. First of all, because Kate mentioned the small ship, just to stress the importance again, when you are going to Antarctica, please, there are two things you really look for. First, you have a ship with stabilizers. That's quite nice for the Drake. And you also get a smaller ship if you want to spend more time ashore. Always depends what you want, because we are a member of the IATO, the International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators. And for example, if you want to go to South Georgia, you have to choose a member vessel. Nobody else by permits is allowed to go into South Georgia. They want to make sure that you know what you're doing, you know the distance, you do a good and safe and responsible operation. So choose a member of IATO. Then also the sizes are quite interesting because, as also mentioned, I worked on bigger ships, and there are three categories of vessels. You have a category 1, and that's up to 200 passengers, a category 2, and that goes until 499, and then above 500. The big ships can go above 500, but you cannot land anymore. It's not allowed. And depending if you're a category 1 or 2 ship, you have different landing sites because we don't want to stress the nature. And landings can only be done for 100 people at any one time. That is important for you. You go on a bigger ship, let's say 400 people. That means as expedition leader, I make 4 groups of 100, and you have a rotation going on. 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, or maybe 2 different things. We have now said that we are 114 guests, if you listened before, but we can run 2 activities parallel. For example, we have 100 people starting to go on a landing. We have kayakers out, so that's already 2 activities. So I can bring out everybody at the same time for an activity and to maximize your time. If that is what you want, you choose a small vessel. The itineraries that you can see here, there are different ones. Some are going via Falkland, Malvinas, South Georgia, and Arctic Peninsula, either starting, ending Buenos Aires, but usually it is Ushuaia, just the first and the last voyage where we go from Buenos Aires. You see one itinerary that stretches far down over the Antarctic Circle. That is the Antarctic Circle itinerary, a little bit longer, and crossing hopefully the Antarctic Circle, of course, weather and ice permitting, usually only 1 a year around February, so we have a good chance. And the other itineraries are going from Ushuaia, and then we are staying on the western side of the peninsula. Important also, when you're looking at a map, that you know, when you read also a book, you see always the same names. We try to do it a bit different, that we try to name an area. And we are going to this area because we are an expedition vessel. We can do other things that the bigger ships cannot do. So why not use it? And that's why we show other places. Let's start with the first one. That is the Antarctic Peninsula trip. And that is let's say a classic voyage that starts in Ushuaia, goes down, and then we are going along the peninsula. You see the one with the dots, that is one where we go, for example, over the Antarctic Circle, a bit longer. But usually we do them all the season long, 11 to 12 days, kayaking, photography, and of course camping. That is what we are doing on those trips. We go and talk about it in detail. Here's our beautiful Sea Spirit in Ushuaia, Tierra del Fuego. That's where we are going to meet. You're going to stay 1 night in the hotel before to also get adjusted to the time. We have the embarkation. You're lucky to go on the safety drill. Of course, that has to be done. And then it's time for the Drake Shake or Drake Lake. That really depends on what it is like. The crossing itself takes 1.5 to 2 days. We consider 2 days on the way back to be on the safe side. But it is actually something that you have to go over. I think it's okay to go over. I'm going to sea 20 years, I still get seasick. Here we go. I think it's worth it once you go down. But keep in mind, there are so many things. First, we have a doctor on board. We have seasick tablets that you can take. Then it's time just to relax. We can give you the lectures. We can prepare you actually for the time in Antarctica. And also if you get seasick, ginger is really good. Like any kind of ginger, take it, and that is quite good. Sometimes it's as calm as this. And to be honest, I have more problems with guests when it's calm than when it's really rough, because people say, what do I tell my friends? I say I go over the Drake Passage, but please wait, there is a way back. Now, you not have it 2 times like this, but it belongs to it. And we need a little bit of wind, because only when we have a little bit of wind, we see the albatross flying. And that is really something spectacular when you have the wandering albatross, 3.5 meter wingspan. I mean, this is really spectacular. The sea days we use to get to know the officers. Here we have, for example, the captain's welcome, or Captain Oleg, directly, of course, in the middle. We have time for lectures, as mentioned. We give lectures on the way there for introduction. We have mandatory briefings like behavior, what do we do, safety. By the way, if the lecture is in English and you are maybe a German speaker, then we have quiet Vox translations directly into German. We have it also for Russian or Chinese, if that is a language departure as well. And then when you come, depends on the season, we see what the activities can be like. The more flexible you are, the better a trip you're going to have. We will make sure that you have the best experience, but the weather has to be okay. And we do a lot of changes. So we try 2 activities a day, and sometimes I have a plan A, then B, and then C, and then there's still the ice is there. And if we go out on plan H that day, we are very lucky. And that is a mindset that you have to have. It's not a Mediterranean cruise, but it is actually fascinating. There are some areas where you can stay maybe on the lower level only. Some areas we can go a little bit higher up, depends on the ice fields that we are seeing. So you can stretch your legs. Like here, it's in Paradise Bay, a very nice picture. And of course, we are there to see the wildlife. And once again, I would like to stress that on the peninsula, you see the small penguins. That means you see, for example, here the gentoo, you see chinstraps, you see adelies. I say that specifically because every season it happens that I have a guest at the pier in Ushuaia who says, oh, I'm so happy, looking forward to see the kings. And problem is already there before we have started, because on a trip to the peninsula, you are not going to see king penguins. We have to be very clear about this one. Once again, managing expectations, I think is a big word and something that we really have to think about. Managing expectations also means that in Antarctica itself, big hikes are not really possible. I mentioned already that most areas are covered by ice, so there are only a few places where we can go. We are going to give you a walkway, for example, with the flags that you see here. We make sure about the distances, and it's really that you sit down also and relax and let the time just pass you. Because I see it on the picture, sunglasses, absolutely important. You have to bring sunglasses. You have to bring really good sunscreen, the highest sunscreen that you have, because of the reflection. It's a very different, you burn very, very easily. So something for your lips, really, it cannot be stressed enough. And then you can be here close to the wildlife, of course, keeping the distance of around 5 meters. And always think about the penguins have the right of way. So even when you're coming, you always have to have the wildlife pass you. And as you can see with the lady, she is quite happy, as usual. But here, great places. And we not only go to places with wildlife, sometimes it's a place where we have extreme scenery around, where we have a lot of glaciers, where we have a mainland landing, which is not normal. There are not so many places to go on the mainland. So every place has something to explore. If it's, for example, here, the seals, if it's the whales that you're maybe seeing. And we are not only doing landings, but what people really enjoy, and I figured that out more and more, it's nearly the same for a guest and a landing, is actually a cruising, a Zodiac cruise. So we do that quite a lot. And that's why I must admit I came back to the small ships, because when I have a small ship and I see a lot of whales around, I just stop the ship and I say, hey, we are ready in 20 minutes with the Zodiacs. Are you ready? Are you flexible? Are you coming with us Zodiac cruising? And I think that is an advantage of being on a small ship and going out also. People enjoy it also to see the ice and hear the sounds. And sometimes you don't hear much, but sometimes you hear, for example, the cracking of the ice, and it's always something together. So maybe in the morning, we either went to a landing, activity, a Zodiac cruise, we come back, weather is nice, we have a barbecue here, for example. And once again, that's all in Antarctica. I always find that very interesting. And maybe in the afternoon, we decide to go Zodiac cruising, once again, using the weather when it's good, if you have a lot of nice ice. I mean, everything is spectacular. And don't worry, sometimes we also shut up. We don't talk all the time, also as a guides, because to have the silence is also something I think that you want to really imagine and seeing. The whales are not very shy. You keep a good distance, but very often we have seen that actually they are approaching us as well. And once again, Zodiac cruising in the ice, landings, and we usually have wet landings, which means you go into the water. We have hiking sticks, by the way, on board. You don't need to bring those. So we lend them to you when you are coming. Ooh, maybe you have a very special occasion. I have to say, thank God, I only had weddings, never a divorce yet. I don't want that, but weddings and proposals, that is something, special occasions that is coming up. And once again, to sit down, relax, enjoy, take nature over. Like, you will see sometimes that many things that you think are important are not so important. Things get a bit different value, but we don't guarantee much, but we can guarantee penguins. Yeah, that's for sure. Penguins and ice, that is definitely something that is on the list and very, very clear on every trip down on the Antarctic Peninsula. And here we have an Adelie penguin, because most pictures I was showing were gentoos, and also they were shin straps, but here we have one Adelie penguin. It is amazing when you have penguins like the shin straps, how high up they climb. I mean, look at this, there is a bay down there, and the penguins are very high. They are actually quite smart, because the higher up they go, the earlier that area is ice-free, the earlier they can start the breeding, and the higher their success of raising their chicks is. So these penguins are actually quite smart. And where they can go, maybe we have a chance to get there as well. If not, we stay on the lower levels. But here also on the left, maybe you see in the far distance on the rocks, there are also some penguins quite high up, great views. And what we have along the Antarctic Peninsula as well are, of course, some stations. This is a former British station called Lochray that I mentioned earlier. It is now a museum that you can visit. It is very well done. It's a post office. You can send your letters. It's a very much visited place. And we are not going there all the time, and not every itinerary, because this is more like a museum kind of thing. But there are also active stations, and active stations are also very nice, and very often you can send postcards from there as well. I mean, shopping you can do somewhere else, but to see an active station, for example, Argentine stations, there are Chilean stations, I think that also has something very appealing for many people. All right, that was a little overview about a normal Antarctica trip. Should we talk a bit about camping, Kate?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Anja, for talking in details about what you can do during the cruise to Antarctica. It's really fascinating. One thing that I would like to add, when you're going on a smaller ship, you have expedition team. And for us with Sea Spirit, we have 13 expedition team members, like Anja mentioned. The good thing about it is that when you are going on a Zodiac cruise and you're seeing a lot of wildlife and nature, and you have the expedition team member with you in the Zodiac, and they tell you what you see, why you see, you can at the same time ask questions. And I think it's really beneficial, you know, to have the professional in the boat with you telling you what you see and why. So this is also the benefit of the small ship. Talking about camping, camping is one of our favorite activities, though I have to say it's 100% weather dependent. So what we do during the trips when we go to Antarctic Peninsula, we plan one night to sleep on land, on Antarctic land. Of course, it's not for all the passengers. It's only for 30 guests. And of course, they're always accompanied by the expedition team. What you can see here is a little bed that actually every passenger has to dig for themselves. It's just for your better comfort, because if you are in a little bit of a bed, so to say, you're protected from the winds. And that's exactly why we are not using the tent, because of the safety, and the winds are easily carry away the tents. That's why we prefer the more natural way. But of course, not to worry, we provide you with all the gear that you might need. We have the BB bags or the sleeping bags, and they're very warm. And please don't worry that you can get cold during your camp out in Antarctica. But of course, the experience of what you get to be there, just 30 of you, enjoy the sounds, enjoy the colors, the wildlife and nature. Of course, it's absolutely amazing and really something that you do once in your lifetime. As it is for 30 passengers, we usually recommend, if you're interested in doing this activity, we recommend to pre-book camping as well. It's really great. We take the guests pretty much right after dinner, and we will bring them back to the ship maybe around 5 or 6 a.m. Of course, the team is with you all the time, and they're watching the weather. In case we need to go back earlier to the ship, of course, there's a safety Zodiac, and that can be arranged, of course. That's a little bit about camping. Really fun activity, and a lot of passengers sign up for it, and they really enjoy the night under the skies. And I think now Anja will be telling us a little more about a different itinerary that also includes Falkland Islands and South Georgia.
Okay, here we go. Falkland, Malvinas, South Georgia, Antarctica. That's the next itinerary I want to talk about. It is also a quite big itinerary. So it's 21 to 23 days. The first and the last voyage either starts or ends in Buenos Aires, and otherwise we are going from Ushuaia. This map is quite good because let's be clear about distances here. Many people underestimate. If you go from Ushuaia to the Falklands, Malvinas, it's 1 sea day. If you go from Falklands, Malvinas to South Georgia, we are talking 2 sea days. South Georgia, Antarctica, 2.5 to 3 sea days. And then of course back from Antarctica to Ushuaia, 2 sea days. This sounds like a lot, but this is a very remote area that needs really some traveling. Personally, I like it that we have these sea days, talking from expedition leader point of view, because we can prepare you properly. The expedition team has enough time to have lectures, for example, between Falklands and South Georgia, because it's so different. So we can prepare you properly. When we have been in South Georgia, you can, first of all, in your mind, collect everything and put it right. We can talk about it again, and we can prepare you for the next itinerary. On these itineraries, by the way, we are not doing camping because we have to move the vessel quite a bit, and we are not so long in Antarctica to have this flexibility, but we are offering, as usual, then kayaking, and also our photographer is there. When you come to the Falklands, we usually spend around 1.5 to 2 days in this area. Falklands is a place where we have a lot of privately owned islands, nature reserves, like you can see here, West Point Island. And there we have mainly the albatrosses that are nesting. And you also see in this picture a few rockhopper penguins because they nest together. So rockhopper penguins and then also wandering albatrosses, what you see here. You can go relatively close and it is really cool. When you sit in the tussock and suddenly you have the albatross coming above your head with a 2.5 meter wingspan, it is spectacular. And definitely many people, they say, oh, the Falklands, Malvinas, they are just in the way, but they are a destination well worth visiting. I wish we would have an itinerary only Falklands, but so far the company doesn't listen to me. But this is really great, only Falklands. And when you are there, you will truly understand, because this wildlife you're not going to see at the other places. So rockhopper penguins, albatrosses nesting, that is for me definitely the Falkland Islands. And this is like one of the rookeries, breathtaking, fantastic people, the Falklanders, very much inviting you into the homes. Sometimes you have coffee cakes and everything. It's really great, a great destination. They also have a capital they're very proud of. Around 2,000 people live there. And they have like one main road. You really will have to watch it. And it's really British. When you get there, of course, it is a British overseas territory. We spent half a day, maybe a little bit longer here in Stanley, in the capital. Many things to do, a great place to explore. Good also for ornithologists, for bird watchers, really great place. And they have a fantastic museum that we should not miss. So definitely a little place where we can explore the normal life. From here, we have around 2 sea days, depending on the conditions, to reach South Georgia. And this is a typical, really typical picture for South Georgia. Long beaches. For me as expedition leader, South Georgia is always a place that really puts a lot of pressure on the shoulders because it's so far away. You only get there once. So you want to see as much as possible, which puts a lot of pressure on us that we cannot allow to overrule us because safety is a main issue here. And every place that we go to is open to the sea. Every place, there is no protection. That means very often you have a lot of swell rolling in. And so not every landing is possible for safety reasons. So we work as hard as we can and we have to look at the weather. And if we have to land at 4 in the morning because the weather forecast is better, we are going to land at 4 in the morning. We make the most out of it. South Georgia, however, of course, for the wildlife, it is great. Again, the sealers, whalers are gone. Wildlife is taking over. Sometimes there is so much wildlife, like here a fur seal, a bull, that we cannot land. That also happens. Imagine you're ready to go out, the expedition team is out, and then you hear my announcement and say, sorry, folks, we cannot land because there is too much wildlife. We cannot find a place to go ashore without disturbing and really moving all the animals around. But then keep in mind, you are on a small expedition ship. Maybe we take out the Zodiacs and we do a Zodiac cruise along the coastline where we still see all the wildlife. But fur seals is really, really special. We talked about the elephant seals. I mean, to overlook a few tons of blubber is very hard. But once they are moving, they are on the move. Nothing stops an elephant seal. So once again, if you want to see the fightings of the bulls, beginning of the season, yeah, October, November, when you're coming in January, and then end of the season, everything is calmer, the bulls have gone, then you only have the small ones, arenas. And why do people come to South Georgia? Of course, you want to see the king penguins. Yeah, the king penguins. This is, by the way, a picture taken with a normal camera. So it's not that you have these super duper lenses to make a good picture, because you have these king penguins everywhere. You have big rookeries, like we really keep the fingers crossed that we can visit, for example, St. Andrews, where you have 200,000 breeding pairs with chicks. So numbers are just something that is very hard to imagine. the smell is special. Everybody will smell like a penguin, the hair, the clothes when you are coming back, but it is very, very worth it. Beginning of the season, here you have still snow, so still the real Antarctica feeling also towards the end. And there we have sea spirit in the back, and then maybe we have some of the king penguins directly. Of course, we keep the distance to the wildlife. I think that is a nice picture. I like that very much. It's a good distance. You are calm. The wildlife is there. It's watching you. You see also South Georgia is not only rocks and snow. There are lichens, there are mosses that you can see. And sometimes we find places a bit higher up. And when I changed them to a small expedition ship, people didn't understand first what made me really happy in South Georgia. When I was on the big ships before, I could only give people maybe an hour. Can't get very far in an hour. And then when I was the first time with a small ship, again, it was Sea Spirit in Antarctica, and I could tell the people, listen, I see you back here in 4 hours. I was the happiest of all because you have time to really sit. You don't have to stay 4 hours, you don't. The Zodiac shuttles you back anytime, but this is a maximum time. And why don't you go there? If you don't want to spend the maximum time really outside, whatever you like, once again, we can accompany you. When the first explorers came, they thought this is a different kind of penguin. I mean, it's not hard to understand why they thought so, but if you worry about what time is the best for the king penguins, it's always the best time. Because the king penguins, from their breeding cycle, they have a different breeding cycle. You will always have king penguins on eggs, and you will always see the chicks, no matter when you go. So this is not a big difference, but South Georgia is extremely special. The history is part of it, and history means whaling history. I mean, it has been huge, and there are some former whaling stations that you can visit, and it is part of the deal to understand history, to make sure history is not repeated in many ways. And yes, we are visiting whaling stations as well. For example, Grütviken, that was one of the main whaling stations that we had. And for people that like history, you basically have to go here because we have a graveyard, and there is a grave of one man here, Shackleton, Sir Ernest Shackleton, and he was buried here. If you want to read, once again, just Google Shackleton and his endurance expedition. Really, really great stories. You have to know about this one, but we lecture also a lot on it to understand. And this is for many people really a place they want to see. We are very lucky with the cooperation of the people that are here at Grütviken. There is a South Georgia Heritage Trust. They offer us actually sometimes little guided tours with the local people from the museum. If you want, you just join here Sarah from the museum. She is the leader. Half an hour different view of the whaling station, which I think is also very, very interesting. And from here, we go down to Antarctica. Of course, short in Antarctica. Maybe 2.5, 3 days, really depending on the weather, on the ice, what can we do and where we go. You should not consider going very far along the peninsula. This trip is dedicated on 3 areas, so we can only give a short insight to Antarctica on this itinerary. If you want to see Antarctica in depth, you have to go on the classic itinerary. Then we have time to go really far south.
Thanks a lot, Anja, for the overview of this amazing itinerary. To be honest, I've been to classic Antarctica, to the peninsula, but now the South Georgia and Falklands has been on my list. So I really have to go and explore this amazing area. And just a couple of words we wanted to mention about the special departure that we will have in November of 2021. And this special departure will be going to Antarctic Peninsula, South Georgia, and Falkland Islands. But of course, there will be an absolutely incredible chance to view the solar eclipse in between Antarctic Peninsula and South Georgia. And we have planned a special trip for this special natural phenomena. You can, of course, have a look at the details on our website and have a look at the dates and duration. But I feel like this trip is really great because not only you get to explore this absolutely amazing places of the world, but of course, to observe the natural phenomena such as solar eclipse is absolutely beautiful. And right now, I would like to mention a couple of words about another very interesting activity that we have in Antarctica. And we operate kayaking both for peninsula trips and those that go to South Georgia and Falkland Islands as well. Kayaking is also an extra activity, and it is available for 16 passengers. So always you have 2 kayak masters on the water with the group, and of course safety zodiac. Kayaking experience in Antarctica takes you to the corners of the bays, so close to wildlife that you probably will not be able to get during the zodiac cruise. We really put a lot of attention to kayaking program aboard Sea Spirit, and we really want to provide best experience for you. That is why the only requirement that we have is for the kayakers to be experienced, because we want them to feel comfortable and safe when they are in the cold waters of Antarctica, for example. So we always have happy kayakers, and they're really getting some absolutely amazing shots on their cameras, having the whales right around or penguins swimming in the water. This experience is really, I would say, in-depth discovering the area. Absolutely great. And again, as the space is limited, just for 16 passengers, we always recommend to pre-book it when you are booking the cabin aboard Sea Spirit. That's our best recommendation. One more thing that we wanted to mention to you, that we really take care of our guests and we provide the gear for you. The expedition parka is given to all the passengers that are joining Sea Spirit departures, and it is to keep. Of course, we have all the sizes, and you don't have to worry about bringing anything like that with you in your luggage from overseas. And of course, we have the muck boots. As Anja mentioned, we have quite a few wet landings when you have to step into the water. So we provide you the muck boots. They are completely waterproof, and they're very good for the landings, very comfortable as well. You take them just for the duration of the voyage. You don't need to really carry them back home, and you don't need them. But again, the parka is really a great souvenir, and it's you can definitely wear it afterwards, after your polar trip. You can take it if you're going snowboarding or skiing, and it's a really great souvenir from such a trip.
Maybe also to mention for the equipment, once again, the question comes again and again, hiking sticks, you don't need to bring. We have enough on board that you can borrow every landing. We have it at the landing site. And please, if you're coming to Antarctica, you have to bring waterproof trousers. That is very important. If I'm your expedition leader, you do not wear waterproof trousers when you come to the landing site, you enjoy a VIP ride back to the ship. I will not let you land without waterproof trousers, because we watch many things from the weather, but you have to help us with one thing only, and that is being dressed properly. And I hope it's not too much to ask for, but you need to wear waterproof trousers, because the worst thing is when you get wet and cold. That is a very tricky situation. So please, waterproof trousers, and we are all on the happy side.
Sounds great. I think it's quite easy to handle that kind of advice. And Anja, do you mind saying a couple of words about the expedition team that works together with us?
Like, we are, as mentioned, 13 in the expedition team. So usually around 110 passengers and 13 in the team. It's a very big team. I used to work on other ships where we had around 300 people and 8 team members. So I think we are very lucky here. We drive the boats, we are out with you, we give the lectures. Our backgrounds are very different. It's from glaciologist, geologist. I see in this picture, for example, people that have worked on stations, people, the gentleman in yellow, for example, has worked in South Georgia for a year. The lady also on the far end right, Sanna, has skied to the South Pole. Everybody has different experiences. Everybody has different backgrounds, biologists, people skiing all over the world. So I think we are a good bunch that keep you entertained and keep you safe in those areas, but also do it with a joy, because it is a job where you have to see that you enjoy it. Otherwise, it's a very tough job, but it's one of the best jobs in the world. And I think we have a very good expedition team, and I'm very proud of them.
Sounds great. And to be honest, that's true, because that's what the feedback from our passengers says. They really enjoy talking to the expedition team members because they have quite a lot of stories, different stories to tell. And that's definitely a highlight of the trip as well. And during the webinar, we actually got a couple of questions. So I think it's a good time when we do a little Q&A session for maybe 5 more minutes. We will not keep you longer. So one of the questions, Anja, that we got during the talk is, does global warming change anything there in Antarctica? Icebergs or weather?
Of course it changes. I mean, no matter if you think about it or don't think about it, for me, that is going there for I consider it a short time, 20 years. And when I can see changes happening in the glaciers, for example, how they are withdrawing, I can see glaciers moving back. They are every year, it's a different place they are at, because there has been the carvings. And also operating for me in this area, the ice 20 years ago is different than it is now. So I have to operate differently. Also, because we have more ice carving, it means that sometimes the area that I want to go to is filled with more ice, which sometimes people are surprised about, but there is more carving, more ice. So maybe I have to really rethink my way of operating, because there is more ice that prevents me from going to a landing site because it is carving just quicker. Very, very clearly it is seen in South Georgia. I mean, that is actually, I must say, I usually try not to do any political things, but that's very scary what you see and I work a lot in Greenland as well. So it is visible. Global warming is there.
Thank you very much, Anja. Yes, it is one of the hot topics nowadays, and we all talk about different things that we can do, but trust us, we do everything possible to keep Antarctica as it is. And you know, there are a couple of initiatives that we are doing at the moment during our cruises. So and of course always looking at more and more to keep the area as pristine as it is right now.
But you know what I also have seen, just to very, very quickly, is that many people, even in the beginning, they're skeptical with climate change. I believe that people believe what they see and what they hear and what they experience. So many people have really not changed their mind, but at least they are willing to think differently. And in this way, I think our goal also as a team with the lectures is to make people ambassadors of an area, to keep it as it is and to protect an area, because you will only protect what you know is fragile and what you have seen yourself as being fragile.
Absolutely. I completely agree that after going to places like that, you have a definitely different mindset. And you think about the whole world, about what you do in your routine life in a different light. We got one more question, and it is, if you don't mind repeating, Anja, how many days we spend in South Georgia when we go? And if it's Antarctic Peninsula trip, then how many days we usually spend?
That is a bit tricky. For example, for South Georgia, we try to be there around, let's say, 4 to 5 days. I say it's tricky because it's so weather dependent. So you have to be very flexible also as a guest, because sometimes maybe I see there is a bad weather pattern coming for the crossing. So I leave earlier South Georgia, or I come there later. Maybe instead of 2 activities, I do 3 activities. So it's not that you lose something as a guest, but it ranges between, I would say, 4 to 5 days at the moment. The same applies for Antarctica. So when, let's say you have a 10-day, that you're on the ship for 10 days, I need 1.5 days, 2 days on the way south, 1.5 days, 2 days for sure on the way back. I always calculate 2 days. I want to be sure I'm in the Ushuaia on the way back, so 2 days. Sometimes maybe I have to leave earlier because the bad weather is coming, sometimes later. But usually we should be there between 5 and 6 days as well on a normal itinerary. Saying this, I took my husband with me last year, the first time on a short itinerary, and we had to leave 1 day later from Ushuaia because of weather. I had to go back 1 day early from Ushuaia or from Antarctica as well. So our time was shortened. Nobody complained because we did a landing before breakfast, after breakfast. Then we did one after lunch, night landing. So we gave the people all the experience, much more actually. So please, we try our best, but everything is weather dependent. If somebody tells you something else, I don't know where they work, but you have to look at the weather, you have to look at safety, but we will make sure we make as much as we can.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Anja. One of the questions was, is it for sure that going to South Georgia, you see the king penguins? And I think we can just simply say, yes, that's guaranteed. Thousands and thousands of king penguins. Let's see if we have any other questions in. Maybe one last question. What do you think?
I can talk for days. I'm sorry, but
no. I think we are going to take one more question, and there was one question about the southern lights, if it's possible to see those during the cruises.
Definitely not.
Yes.
The southern lights and northern lights, they are there. Like every northern light has a corresponding southern light and the other way around. We can talk about it in detail. But at this time when we are there, it is simply too light. We don't see it. And we are too far still in the north, even though we are in the south. You have to go further south.
Sounds good. Thank you, Anja. I'm just going to feature one more question here about the coronavirus protection. I know that it's somewhere at the back of the mind of everyone, because as soon as we start traveling, we will probably have to really get this question up. But what I would like to say, and I think, Anja, if you agree with me, that at the moment there are multiple procedures that are being considered to be taking place as soon as we start traveling on the airplanes and on the ships, but everything is in work in progress. And of course, as soon as we are getting closer to the cruises, we will be giving you all the procedures that we will be doing before boarding. But at the moment, everything is in process, and different associations are looking at really different measures to be taken for those purposes. I think we will stop here because we promised 1 hour, but it was a little bit longer. And please feel free to send your questions in the emails, and we will definitely be glad to get back to you. And again, more information with all the scheduled departures, with the videos, with the frequently asked questions is on our website, which is poseidonexpeditions.com. And dear friends from all over the world, we are so thankful and grateful for you joining us today, talking about Antarctica, sharing our passion, and we hope it was really useful and informative for you. And as always, I am thanking Anja for joining us and for, you know, sharing your experience and your love for this absolutely beautiful area, Antarctica. Thank you, Anja.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for joining and for taking the time. And thank you very much, Kate. See you soon. Bye.
You,
Thank you.
friends, we'll see you again soon. Thank you. Bye.